All right, we're back, and it is COMP1004, Rapid Application Development in the fall 2016 semester, and it's week 3, part 3 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about enums and some other things related to C# programming, and we're going to continue with that by skimming the surface. We're going through, basically, we're covering chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 today from the book, right? I'm always trying to cover a couple of chapters to get us moving through these C# essentials pieces, because by, at the end of the day, you should know programming. I'm not going to reteach you how to program necessarily. You should know some of this stuff. So let's go to courses, and we'll look at lesson 3. Okay. So the second one, part 2 of the PowerPoint, right, is all around control structures. Okay. Control structures are things like if statements and switch statements. I want you to think about the relational operators as the same relational operators across all C-influenced languages. Nothing different there. So that's nothing to learn. Now this is something, operators, when it comes to, this is hard to read, the conditional and is the double ampersand sign. All right, so it's not the single ampersand sign, right? It's you want to kind of use the double ampersand sign a lot of times when it comes to stuff, right? Now, if you notice, it says conditional and, conditional or, then or, right? Okay, and you can certainly use a single pipe or double pipe. They both work, and not. Again, these are all the same kind of operators that you'd use in every other language. Yes? You typically would not, right? Because what it does actually is it does bitwise, bitwise operations. I would never want to do that. So please use double ampersand sign, right? Again, if-else statements, if you've seen these kind of conditional statements before, they're the same in C# as they would be in other languages, C-influenced languages. Switch statements, the same. You have your case and your break, and then your expression that will go here with a bunch of statements, right? Also, I highly recommend using a default for all of your switch statements. That way, you have a catch-all, just in case it's not one of those cases. Sometimes C# will error out if you don't include a default, because it's kind of listening for one of these cases to to kind of come into play. And here's an example of a switch statement with a customer type R, C, or the default, and the different kind of discounts that are in decimal. You can see the M refers to decimal. Okay, and I'm not going to go too much into that, right? I just want to talk about control structures so you've seen them. While loops and for loops, all that stuff that we've seen before, they're the exact same structure that you've seen in other C-influenced languages like Java, C, C++, yep. No. In fact, sometimes switch is a lot clearer than if, else, if, else, if, else at the end of the day, right? It's all for clarity, right? That's what it should be. Your code should be clear, what it does. There is something that they don't cover here, which I don't think they cover, do loop for conditionals. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So loops, do loops, all this kind of stuff, they're all available, the same kind of looping structures that they would. And the book kind of details how they work when it comes to setting loops and so on. Okay, so I don't think there's anything here that's going to surprise you in terms of what they do. I'm just showing you where it is on the PowerPoint presentation, just in case you need this as a reference card, and that's it for conditionals. Like, I'm just showing you that they're the same. See you later. Like, literally, I'm not going to retrain you on if statements, right? You guys should know how to do if statements. However, there is something that we do use. All right. An example would be if I have a value. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this for a second. And if I go back to my start form, right? And in my value, I want to be able to toggle off or toggle on a value. Right? An example of this would be if I want to click a button, and when I click it the first time, it gives me one value. And if I click the same button a second time, it gives me another value. Now, there's a couple ways to write this. I can use 9 lines to write if, else, if, else. Or I can use the ternary operator. Okay. Who knows what the ternary operator is? Yay, one person knows what the ternary operator is. Let's do that. So imagine I have a button. Let's put another button in place. I'm going to copy this next button for now. Copy it. I'm going to press play or paste, and here inside here I'm going to kind of make the button that says click me again, all right, in our method, right? So here's our button for the demo, right? And I'm going to just kind of get rid of this, and we're just going to rename this button so it says click me, right? And let's make it a little larger so we can see the actual text of the button. There it is, right? Yes. Yes. Copy paste, right? But I want to change the name of the button to something else, like for example, the click me button, right? Yeah, I can copy and paste any element I want, but it'll change the values, like the name of the button. It'll change it back to button 1, right? And so, but it keeps the formatting. So for example, notice that my styles stay the same, right? There's an advantage to doing this. If I have a bunch of like controls, as an example, right? And I want to change my controls so that they're all the same style, I can copy paste the control as opposed to making a new button, going to the font, changing it to 12, making it Lucida Sans. All those are all the changes that I would have to make this button again, right? But now I'm just doing copy paste and then changing only the things I want to change. Much faster way of doing it. So I got my click me button, and I'm going to go to my toolbox for my label. So here's my label, right? And I'm going to drag and drop my label onto the form, right, to demonstrate what I'm talking about with the ternary operator. Let's make the form also 12-point Lucida Sans, right? So here's Lucida Sans. Right, so here's 12-point Lucida Sans. Here's my label 1. We'll make it so it's aligned. There we go. And we're going to say hello, goodbye. Remember that whole hello, goodbye thing, right? And what we're going to do is we're not going to assign a value to the label in the beginning. We're going to make, there's no value, so there's no text in the label. And we're also going to change the name of the label to like message label, right? So here's my message label, right? Okay, so here's what I want to do. When I click on the message label the first time, it's going to say hello. But if I click it again, it's going to say goodbye. And it's going to keep on switching between one or the other. Hello, goodbye, hello, goodbye, hello, goodbye. Every time I click it, it's going to change. How do we code this thing? Not so difficult. Double click on the click me button to create the click event, right? And normally, the long way would be like this. So I need to know what the value of the label is. If, as an example, right, the label, the message label, text, right? Now again, think about this. If it's not empty, right? It's not equal to the empty string. Notice what I did there. I used the string class, right, to say if it's not empty. That's the first thing. So it's not empty. So it's something. It contains something, right? It's got some kind of value. Then I'm going to change it. I'm going to do this if statement again. I can do an if statement. If the message label.text is the long way, okay? Message label.text. If it's equal to, right, the value of, hello, right? Then I want to change my message label.text, right? I want that equal to goodbye, right? Goodbye. Otherwise, else, right? Message label.text is equal to hello. Inefficient. Brute force. This is like when I look at your code and I go, God, that's ugly, right? Yeah. No, you could use null, but string empty is the more precise way of doing it because it's also more readable, right? We know it's the empty string, right? So, but you could use null. So let's try it out and see if it works. So I'm going to get rid of this. I don't need to see that. Here's my design, and let's run this thing and see if we have any problems. So I run it, and if I have a problem, it's going to come up. It's going to come up in the top here. Click. Oh man, what happened? Right? Hey, where's my? How come it didn't work? Right? Well, here's the troubleshooting piece that I wanted to show you today. So here's my troubleshooting. I did click on the button, so it did register the click. Right? Here's my click me button. Clicked a bunch of times. Right? What's the value of my string? Right? What's the value of my object, right? How do I compare strings? Remember we talked about comparing strings, right? So first of all, the question is, if we're going to do this thing properly, right? If I go to my startform.cs and if I stop debugging, right? Let's go through the logic here for a second. if my message label.text is not equal to the string.empty, somehow it's not getting here. How do I do a debug? I want to be able to debug my form, and the way to do that is because we're using Windows Forms, right? Normally in Java, you're going to use the system.out.println, right? And C#, it's it's WriteLine. That's what it's called, WriteLine, right? But we can't use a WriteLine because WriteLine would go to the console. We don't have a console application here. We have a Windows Forms application. So we need to use something called debug.WriteLine, right? Which is going to go to the debug window. And we're going to say something like, okay, we're going to say, ready to compare or switching. We'll say switching values, right? Here we go, switching values. There's just my debugging, right? That I use. Now notice I got my debug. There is no debug. It says, hey, I don't know what debug is. That's what the underline is, right? Well, remember that when I run C# code, I have a bunch of using statements that include different libraries, right? And the one that I need is not included by default. If I click on the debug method or class, and if I press Control dot on my keyboard, Control dot, it comes up with some examples or some suggestions. And one of them is this using systems diagnostics, which I need. If I click on that, it actually writes the using system diagnostics. It includes it inside my using statements. In order, by the way. Okay, good. So that means if I get here, if I'm able to get here to, if I check to see if this works, if I pass this check, then it'll do this. Make sense? Okay. So that's the first hurdle. Can I get to this? Can I get to line 25 in my code, right? All right, so if I run, click, and did I see that debug.WriteLine come up here? No. How about down here? This is the debug window. Do I see anywhere where it says, okay, you clicked, it's you got that piece of code? And the answer is no. Even if I click on it again, you can see that I'm not getting anything. It's not coming through, which means that I'm never getting by that check. All right? I'm pointing it out to you because sometimes you think it should work the way it works, and somehow it doesn't. So message label.text is what I'm checking, right? Message label.text. Message label.text is this label, which is right here. Here's the label. It's hidden right now. But if I go to my Solution Explorer, if I go to Properties, right, for my message label, with my message label, let's click on Properties, right? Notice that my text seems to be empty. It seems to be empty. I can pull down other values, but my text seems to be empty, right? Is it empty? Is the question, right? That's the thing I'm asking. Now, if I went with your suggestion and checked null, right? Let's see if that would work. So if I go here, instead of string empty, right? If it's not equal to null, right? Because that means that my text would be a nullable value. We just went to nullable values, right? Let's see if I make this change, if it's equal to null, or I use the open and close quotes. Because remember, text is a string, right? Let's check this out and see if it works now. So run with debugging. Notice on the right-hand side, I haven't clicked anything, but as soon as I click the button, I get hello. So null works. If I click it again, I get goodbye. And if I click it again, I get null, hello. And it keeps on toggling between one value and another. Yes? No. String, the two quotations is the empty string, right? But this isn't an empty string because this is an object. String.text is an object, and text, even though it's a string, the text property is a type string, it's a nullable type, right? And that's why it gets you to null or not, okay? Wouldn't work, but if I had two strings though, if I was comparing true real string data types, then it would work, right? String compare is a better way of comparing things. Okay, and we'll talk about that later on when we handle strings in another lecture, all right? But now this works, but it's a lot of code, right? Like it's a lot of silly code for just to toggle. So this is okay, we're gonna leave this in place. This can't change. However, I wanna convert all of this. Let's get rid of this because now I know it's going there, right? I wanna change all this into one line. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the ternary operator. How do I do that? And if you've never seen this before, it looks funny, right? But it's like this. I'm gonna do something like this. I'm gonna say message label.text, right, is equal to, right? Now, again, if here it is, message label.text, message label.text. If it's equal to hello, right? Right? Then what do I want it to do? I want to make it so that the text value of my message label is now equal to goodbye. This is the short form, the shortcut, or equal to hello. Okay, that's the line. Now, if you look at it, you're like, holy crap, what does that mean, right? It means this. I have a comparable, right? This is my comparable. And it's like saying this line here, I'm putting it here next to my equal sign. So I'm saying, hey, I'm going to assign a value, but I'm going to do a conditional. I'm going to assign a conditional value. I don't know what the value is going to be yet, but here's my conditional test. I'm going to test to see if the value I'm testing is hello. If it's true, the quotation mark says anything that's true comes after the quotation. That's the true value. So if it's true, take the stuff that's after the quotation mark and put it into here. Sorry, question mark, and put it over here, right? And if it's not true, anything after the colon, take the hello and put it into here. That's what it means, all right? So we do a comparison and an assignment in one line with two optional values, either goodbye or hello. Goodbye if this statement is true. If you evaluate this statement to true, then we assign goodbye to the message label.text. Otherwise, if it's false, we assign hello to the message label.text. Okay, that's the option. Now we can get rid of all this. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. We're going to do it in one line. Java, JavaScript, C++, it's all C-influenced languages, right? But only for a bipolar kind of thing, you know, with a true or false, right? If you ever have a true or false value that you're switching between one state and another, for example, if I have a flag, did I select this or not? Yes. If it's true, good. It's selected. Otherwise, if I've already selected it, deselect it, like a checkbox. It's the same idea. If I check the checkbox, do this. If I don't check the checkbox, do this. Turn the flag down, right? From English to French, could work like this. If it's English, if it's this, then switch to English and then do this, right? Yes. No. Here's this. We need this. We need this statement. This statement we need to see if it's not null, right? Because if it's null, then we avoid this thing, right? If it's not null, if it's already something, then we're going to do something. We're going to put this in. Now, do I need this? Right. So I'm checking to see if it's hello. If it's not hello, if it is hello, then assign goodbye. Otherwise, assign hello. So do I need this? Is the question. And the answer is I don't. I can do it like I can get rid of this altogether. So now I've got rid of all this, right? Because I don't even check for that because I don't need to check for that. So I can go back down to one line. Yeah. My message label is here. This thing here is a label that I put in, and I called it message label. Right? All I'm doing is getting a label. I've called it message label. I've put it into my form. Right? My message label has a text property. Right? And right now I've deleted the text value. I've deleted the text value of my message label property. Right? Text value is gone. It's nothing in there. And if you notice, it shows up as blank here in the Visual Designer. When I click the Click Me button now, what I'm expecting to do is put, if it's not there, it'll say goodbye. Otherwise, it'll say hello. Let's check this out. So click hello, and then if I keep doing that, it'll keep toggling between the two values over and over again. Right? One line, do it all. Okay. I don't know why it's showing up that way. It must be my formatting. Questions around this ternary operator. If you've never seen it before, it looks like alien code, right? You're like, what the hell is that, right? But guys, it's a standard thing that's across all C-influenced languages. You can use it in C#, C++, like I said, even VB. It'll work in VB too. A lot of those languages that are C-influenced, it'll work for all of them, right? JavaScript, right? We use it in JavaScript extensively because it's one line. And the smaller amounts of smaller code runs faster, right? Typically. It does. You can do that kind of check. Is it checked or not checked? Checked or not. If it's checked, then. If it's not checked, then. So that's like 8 lines. I can make it 1 line, right? Okay. Let's talk about a splash screen and how to do that. Now, one thing we've talked about before so far is we have this single form. So there's a couple things I want to do. One is, how do I move from one form? This is my start form, and I'll label it this way. So this form itself, here's my start form. Okay, start form. And so you can see that it's the start form. Okay, it's even called start form, right? Start form, right? And I want to go from this form, and I want to go to the other one, right? Right now, I'm not passing values. All I want to do is go from one form to the other. Okay, a couple ways to do this. A form is an object, right? It's a class that I can instantiate. Remember that the start form for me, if I look at my Solution Explorer, my start form is detailed in my program, right? So in my program.cs, think about this as the driver class. We talk about the driver class in Java. It's like the main class that kicks off the whole project, right? This is what this thing is. This is the program class is the driver class, right? And notice that we're using the application class, the run, to run my start form. I actually tell the compiler which form to start first, okay? That's what this does. Now, what I want to do is I could declare all my forms first. I could kind of make all my forms and then declare them all and then instantiate them afterwards and then show them or hide them. I could do that. But typically what we do is this. We declare a form, all right? Let's say this is my start form. Let's go to the next form. We'll make another form called next form. So right-click on the project. I'm going to add a new form, right? Here's a Windows form. And we're going to call this form, okay, here's my Windows form. We're going to call this form next form. I did choose new item. You can also do the, you can right-click on the quick hits menu. So next form and then click add. Okay, here's my next form, right? And I got start form and next form. And my next form has very little value right now, right? And if I go to my properties of my next form, let's just do a couple things here, right? So I'm just going to unpin this one. You can see that my text says next form. Let's just put a space in there so I can see next form like this, right? And I've got a button in my start form. Here's my button for my start form. It's a next button, right? Oops. I want to copy it and go to my next form and paste it inside my form, right? So I can do that. It retains the value. And I'm going to put it over here. And guess what I'm going to call this thing? The back button. I'm going to call this thing back button, right? Here's back button. And we're going to go back down here. Instead of saying next, it's going to say back. Hey. Back. Next. Okay. First of all, I want to be able to get to my next form from my start form. So here's my start form. I want to get to, when I click next, this is the behavior I want. So listen to what I say, right? This is almost like the user story, if you will, right? The user story is this. A user should be able to click on, as a user, I should be able to click on the next button and my next form will open, right? That's the user story, right? Okay. I know I need to make the button click event happen. So I'm going to double click on the button click event, the next button, which creates this stub, this next button click event. Yes? Depends on how you did it, right? So let's follow along and then we'll share this thing later on. I can't go there and troubleshoot your stuff, Gabriel. All right, so I want to double click, and if you notice, here's my next form.cs, right? Here it is, start form.cs. I want to show my next form, and I want to hide my current form, okay, my start form. But I got a problem. The method to show and hide, right, is show and hide, all right? I know this is really rocket science, right? That's what they're called, show and hide, okay? And if I want to close a form, I just go close, right? Very easy. But there's a problem here. If I go something like this, next form, right, dot show, there's no option for that. Why? What does this look like? I got this teal, right? Well, no, this is an object, right? my next form is an object, and it hasn't been instantiated, right? So I have to instantiate my object, which means my previous form, my start form, actually has to create my next form, right? That means I can't close down my next form, my first form, my start form, because if I close that down, the whole thing closes down, right? And one form will depend on the other one. Okay, by the way, this is very common, right? So the real thing I have to do is this. I have to declare an object of next form, and we'll just use lowercase next form. Next form is equal to a new next form object, right? Now it's called next form because we called it next form, right? We can call it whatever we want. We named it the form. In Solution Explorer, we named it next form. So therefore, you have to declare an object. Okay, is this enough to show my form? No, it just creates the object, right? Just like we did it in our program.cs. In the program.cs, we said, hey, here's a new start form. But I did something else here. I did application run, and I used an anonymous object called new start form. I didn't name the start form something. I could have, right? But I didn't. Here we're using an anonymous object inline. That's what we're doing here, okay? Not true inside of our startform.cs. We're declaring an object called next form. And what I want to do is I want to say something like this. Next form then .show, and I want to hide the current form. If I close my form down, I can't use the close method because if I close my form, my application is closed, right? I got to use this, right, which refers to the form itself, .hide. Okay? So this .hide hides the current form, and the next form.show. Why am I doing that? Why am I hiding one and not closing it? Actually, it really works this way in mobile applications too, right? We actually never close down a screen in mobile applications. If I go to the next screen, the other screen's behind, right? That's what ends up happening. We never actually close it down, right? And the more screens you go to, you just have to close this one or hide this one, hide the later ones, and then show the other ones. All right, so this is the first way. So on the way in, we're going to hide one form and show the new one. But we have to instantiate it for the first time. Okay, this is all good now. Let's go show you how you can get there. So let's try this out. All right, so I'm going to run it, and I click next, and hey, there it is. Now, what I want to do is to click the back button and go back. Right? Okay, it's going to look like we're going to go back, right? But what's really going to happen? I'm going to hide the old one. I can't close it because if I close it, bad things can happen, right? I'm going to hide the next form and show the start form, right? But here's a problem. If I click that button again, if I click the next button, what is it going to do? It's going to create a new form altogether again because I'm using a new object over and over again. Am I going to have this old remnant hanging out? No, I won't, because this object is going to be renamed, and I'm going to destroy the old object and create a new one. So I'm okay with this way. Okay, hindsight being, if I was going to plan properly, what I should do is close this form and open up and show the other one, because if I only hide my next form and show my start form, I'm going to have memory leaks, all right, possibly. Yes? Yes. Yes. Yeah, for example, would be, now look, here's a problem too. See how my next form, if I click this close, my application is not closed. Because my application closes from the original form. This is just a child form of the master form, which is the start form, right? This is how because the way I'm doing it right now. I'm going to answer your question in a second. Let's try this out. So let's say, just to make it look nice, I want to go into my start form. Here's my start form and my designer. Click on the form itself. And I want to go to properties. And where my start position is, let's make the start position start off as center screen. You can also choose a manual position to answer your question. So whatever manual position you choose, it'll start there. But let's choose center screen, okay? And let me do the same thing for my next form. So my next form's also going to start at center screen. So remember, I can go to my properties and my Windows default location. I'll go to center screen. So now when I run it again, it'll look like this, just to answer your question. So here's my start form. next, and then my next form, okay? And then back. Back doesn't work. It shows that I'm clicking on it, but it doesn't work right now. To make it work, I've got to close this one and show the other one, but I can't close this one before I show the next one, because if I close this one, it'll never get to the show. Because close actually closes the actual object. It doesn't retain it in memory. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Yes, you have a question? This one? All I've done here is in my, sorry, all I've done here is all I did is copy paste to get this back button. I didn't do that. My back button doesn't work yet.
No, I know, but make it work. It's the same, like,
same style?
Yeah.
No, because if I did that, right, then I would have another start form, and that's bad, right? That means I would create one, create another one, and then from there we'll create another one, and then that one would create another one, and it would keep on creating new forms forever, and I would have a huge memory leak, which I never want to do, right? What's better to do is do this. So let's make the back button work. Double click. Here's my back button. Okay. Here's a question. Do I even know what my previous form is? Does my next form know about its parent? No, it does not. It has no idea about its parent. And I want you to believe me on this one. Although there's funky ways you can figure it out, right? I want you to assume it does not know anything about its parent form. So what do I need to do? I need to make a property inside my start form, right? A property, not an instance variable, that is of type start form, that I can refer to as the previous form. And I need to set this when I create the form in the first place. Example would be this. This is easy to do. I can say this.hide or this.close. This.close is one of the things I need to do, my back button, right? Because I got to close my form down, right? But going back, I need to know what the previous form was, which I have no idea. There's no track of that, which means I need to create a property up here to do that. And the easiest way to do that is to do the following. Before my constructor, I'm going to do prop, P-R-O-P, right? That's the short form. And you can click tab. It's going to make my property. But instead of being an integer, we're going to make it of type start form, right? And instead of it being my property, we're going to call this previous form. Okay. So now I have my previous form, which is of type start form, okay? And what I'm going to do is do one of these, assuming that we know what it is, because we haven't said it yet, but assuming we know what it is, I'm going to say something like this. I'll say this, right, dot previous form dot show. We don't know what it is yet. We just know it's of type start form, but we haven't really assigned a value. There's no reference to the start form right now. We can't do it from here. We have to do it from the start form, which means this has to be a public value, all right? That's why I made it a property. Okay, let's try this out now. So this is the first step. First step is declaring a public property. Then inside start form.cs, this one. Before we go to the next form, right? So we declare and we instantiate the next form, and then we show it. But before we show it, we want to use the property that we just declared, next form dot previous form is equal to what? This, right? So we're making a reference to this form, and we're storing it in the next form, so it knows where to go back. Make sense? So here I'll catalog the results. So first step, step one, right? Instantiate the next form, whatever the next form is. In this case, it's called next form, all right? Step two, right? Save a reference to the current form in a property of the next form. Right, which is going to be called whatever it is, previous form, right, in this particular case, right? Then, show the next form. And hide this one, right? That's what we're doing. That's the first step. This is on the form that's going to create the next one. Okay? Make sense? So first, these are the steps you need. It looks complex, but really, if you understand what we're doing with classes, I'm instantiating an object within another object. My object itself is the start form. Inside my start form, I'm making another object of type next form, right? But next form has no knowledge of its parent because it's not really a parent. It's just the object that's created it, unless I tell it what it is, which is what I'm doing here. And I'm doing that because when I use next form, I'm actually creating the shape of my form ahead of time. So it has a container, right, that could point to the previous form. In this particular case, we want to declare this is step one for the next form. Declare a property that has the shape of the previous form. Saying shape because it's going to take the form of the data type has to be of type whatever the previous form that you came from was. In this case, start form, right? But it could be whatever it is. We're going to do multiple ones. We're going to see some examples of doing multiple forms. Okay, that's one. The next one is down here. I want to show the previous one. So show the previous form, whatever that is. This is easy. And this time I want to close this one. Close down this form. Closing down this form actually removes it from memory. It's still instantiated, right? But I've cleaned it up. I've done some cleanup when I do close, okay? I don't do any cleanup when I do hide. Hide, it actually just makes it invisible. Close, not only does it make it invisible, but it actually takes away a lot of other things that are happening with the application lifecycle. Okay, let's run this thing and see if it works. So I've got my click event. Here it is. That's weird how it's coming up. I click next. I go to this form. I click back. I see this one. I click next. I go to this one. I click back. I go to this one. I can go back and forth now. And I'm showing one and hiding the other. And there's only one form. Notice again that if I'm in my next form, if I click this X button, I'm actually not closing down my application because my original form is still working, right? Okay, we need to conquer that one. So, two options for closing down the application. One option, when I click the X button, I'm going to close my form. There's an event called onFormClosing. On form closing event, I can do what I want to do. I can sit there and go, okay, go back to the previous form. I can do that if I want that behavior. Or I can just close my application if I want to, depending on what I want. So how do I do that? Because this is kind of broken this way, right? Let me show you this again. So again, I click on my form, I go next, and if I click this, it's still running, right? And it's still running, but because I haven't really closed anything, all I've done is close down my form. That's all I've done, but it hasn't stopped my application. Okay. So in my next form, what I need to do is if I go to my designer, my next form.designer, right? So here's my next form.designer. If you click on the lightning bolt, this is the easiest way to do it. You can see that there are several different things. For example, the form, right, closed, that's when the form is fully closed, or the form closing, this is the better one. The form closing event means it's just about to close. Just before it's closed, just before I shut the whole thing down, I want to do something, right? So I want to double click on this form closing event, right? And what it does is it creates this little stub again, this next form closing, right? All right, so that means when the form is closing, when that is the state of the form, I want to do something, yes? Okay. So if I go to the next form, the designer, and if I click onto it, and I click on the lightning bolt, and if I look at the different events, I want to double click on the form closing event, double here, which generates this code here, this little code that says next form closing. Form closing on the lightning bolt, right? So I go to, again, I'll do it one more time. You got it? Form closing. All right, now that I got the form closing event, this is the form closing event, I have access to I can do something when the form is closing, right? So when I click the X button, I can decide what I want to do. So if I want to go back to the other one, then I'm going to do something like this again. right? So show the new one, show the previous one, and close this one, right? But if I want to just close the whole application, I can just do something like application.exit. I could do that. Oops, not execute, exit, right? I could do this too, right? I could do application exit. So now let's see how it works. So if I put application exit when the form is closing, it's going to shut down my application. Let's try this out. So and I go next, and I click good, and the whole application closes down. All right? Or let's try this again. Instead of application exit, I want to go back to the previous form, like the back button, kind of, right? I want to duplicate my code. This is code duplication, and you know what? We want to do it right the first time, and we want to keep it simple. I don't want to duplicate myself. Actually, it's called the dry principle, which is don't repeat yourself. Dry, right? I want to do this piece again, and the best way to do it is to declare it as a separate method, right? So I could do something like this. I'm going to kind of take these things here. I'm going to go to my edit button. I'm going to go down to refactor, and I'm going to go down to extract method. So again, step one, highlight the code that you want to extract into a method. That's the first thing. Step two, go to edit, go down to refactor, and then go down to extract method. Extract method. Yes, you do. And then when you go to your next method, you want to rename this to something else. Like for example, you know, something like go back to previous form or show previous form. That'll be the method. So show previous form. Something that's descriptive. All right. Okay, so this is my show previous form method. Well, guess what? I can do it here, my bat button, but I can also do it here, right? So I can say show previous form. And I can do that on form closing. So when the form is closing, I'm going to go back to my previous form. Kind of the same thing, right? Except instead of me closing my application, I can use my start form to control when the application closes down, all right? Not my final form, yeah. Do you want to close it, right? Do you want me to do that too? Sure, let's do that. So I wanted something like this. Here's my next form closing. Here's my prompt, right? So I want to kind of create a message box. Here's my message box, just for you, right? Just because you're asking. Message box.show, right? And I want to create a, again, there's two things. There's a bunch of overloads. There's 21 overloads from my show method from my message box, right? I want to create two pieces. I want to have the name, the the title. And again, if you notice that the string text displays a message, right? The other one is, there's different options here, but it's also the caption and the message. So the string text is the message, and then the caption, whatever the caption is, the title bar, right? So the message would be something like, you know, are you sure, right? Right? That's what we're asking for, right? And then the caption would be confirm, confirm, you know, going back. Confirm going back. I don't know, what do you want to call it? Okay, now what I can also do is I can add in some different kinds of buttons. For example, I want to have my message box buttons, and I want to have an OK cancel, right? Or yes, no, I'm sure or not, right? Whatever you want to choose, all right? Let's use OK cancel for now. All right, cool. So let me show you this whole thing so you can see the whole thing and its beauty, right? So message box.show, are you sure? Confirm going back, right? Is going to be the title, and then I'm going to show two buttons instead of one, an OK cancel button. OK and cancel. Okay, those are going to be the options. Okay, now I need to get the result, somehow a result of these two things, right? I need to kind of pull for the result. So depending on what the result of my message box is, .show, it's got to basically say if it's OK, right? Then I'm going to shut it down. If not, then I'm going to I can go to a thing. Now I can store it in a variable, or I can just use an if statement like this. I can say something like if message box.show, right, my OK cancel, right, is equal to, and I can say dialog result dot OK, right? I know this is all one line, so please don't freak out when I do this way. All right, I can say then, well, show previous form, right? If it's OK to continue, are you sure? Yes. Right? Show my previous form. Otherwise, do nothing. Otherwise, do nothing. Okay? So I'm saying, hey, are you sure? OK, cancel. If I click OK, if the dialog result is OK, then show the previous form. Otherwise, if it's canceled, do nothing. Let's try this out and see if it works. All right, so here's my button. Click next. I'm going to click this button here, and it's going to say, hey, are you sure? Confirm going back, right? If I click cancel, it just closes down my form. It doesn't do anything. It allows the close to occur, right? Allows the close to occur. Now, I don't want that. I actually want my close to cancel. That's what I want it to do. And you can do that by putting in an else statement, else. And then I can say something like, I believe it's e.cancel. E.cancel. I think it's a property, not a method. It's a property. E.cancel is equal to true, right? So what it means is, the reason why I'm using E is because it's saying, hey, if my form closing event, this is the event, and I want to cancel my event. That's all I'm doing, canceling the event itself. This is the event. This E represents the event, which is my form closing event. When my form's starting to close, I'm saying, hey, are you sure? Yes? Okay, keep closing it. If I'm not sure, then stop the closing event altogether. Don't do anything. Let's see if that works. Don't worry, I'll put this all up on GitHub today. All right, let's try NO. Next. Click. Cancel. Right? Kept it. Click. OK. And then, are you sure? Uh-oh. OK, are you sure? Uh-oh. Why is it doing this now? Because, right, I'm trying to close one form whenever it closes and go to the other one, right? And it's always going to close that form, so therefore it's always going to ask this question, right? Because of what you've asked me to do, right? You said A before you close. And this isn't really the proper way of doing things, and I'll tell you why. Because in reality, we wouldn't do it for the X. The X is either I'm going to close the form or not, right? I'm not actually canceling anything unless I want to stop. And the other thing I got to think about is, do I want to do this on form closing? Maybe this is the wrong event because it's always going to close, right? Or maybe I want to capture it somewhere else, like when I click the next button, or sorry, if I click the X button, I want to do something else with the X button before it closes, way before, right? There's other kinds of events we can hit, but this works. So let's get rid of this stuff. Let's just go back, and I want to go back to my previous form. Always go back to my previous form, so don't even ask the question. But if you were going to do something, you would use a message box like this. And that's recorded for you guys, so you can actually go back there and do it. OK. Let's make a splash screen. Now remember, if I'm going to make a splash screen, it's just another form, all right? Think about a splash screen, so a special form that I'm going to make. This is for your lab, OK? And I'm sure you can figure this out if you think about it. I don't want to start my start form first. I want to start my splash screen first. When my splash screen finishes, after 3 seconds, I want to kick off my start form. Okay, so my start form is not going to be application run. Okay, if I go to my program, I can't have my start form start first. It's going to be my splash screen that starts first. So let's do that first. Let's create my splash screen. My splash screen is going to be like stupidly easy to make, right? So I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to right click on my project. I'm going to go add, and then I'm going to say new form, Windows form. And we're going to call this splash form. Here's my splash form. It's empty. Which one did you erase? Make sure that you don't, you probably erased too many curly braces, right? Broke everything?
Yeah. Cancel it.
Didn't work like that with me, right? I don't know what happened, but it didn't work like that with me at all. Okay, I'll put up my code in a bit. Let me show you my splash form here so we can get this done.
Just one.
Sure. Oh, this is what you're talking about. Okay. Right, and it's kind of broke. You're talking broke, right? Because it has this. Okay, it says base dispose. See, you're disposing. It's going to give this problem. Yeah. Why? Because I know what. If you go to, here's my designer, right? I can't kill this form. If I go back to, because it's the way it's the order that I did it in, right? It's not because of anything else. So if you go back to the next form closing, and if I show my previous form, right? What's happening is on closing, when it's closing, I'm showing my previous form, which I'm doing the close event again, right? So in fact, what's actually happening is I'm calling the close event twice, right? I'm closing it by clicking the X button, then I'm closing it again, right? That's what I'm doing, which is incorrect, right? So I want to show my previous form, but my show previous form probably only needs to have this, right? Like previous form.show. And so really I don't need this. I'm not really duplicating in this case, right? That's why it broke. I want to do this piece. Show previous form shouldn't be show previous form. Let's just get rid of this method. And actually I'll keep this part. Hold on. It's incorrect. Thank you for this. And I'll get rid of this. And what I'll do is, instead of show previous form, I'll just previous form show. Because the close is already firing. It's already triggering. Right? Because I'm already in the process of closing. So I'm trying to close again. And that's what's causing the break. Right? Let's try this out. So next, and back, and next, and back. What was that? I just killed my show previous form method because it was incorrect. Okay, I got to finish this off for you guys, or else you're not going to have the thing to do. So splash form. So to make a splash form, what you need to do, right, is there's a couple things I would recommend. One is I want it to be borderless. Right, my splash form should be borderless, and my splash form should start in the center screen. So go to center screen, and let's make it borderless. If I go to form border, the form border property, right? Another form. I'm going to make it so that there's none. All right, that's the first thing. This is my splash screen. I'm also probably going to make it a different shape, like something like that, right? And then maybe put some kind of label that says, you know, welcome to my program, or whatever image you want to put in here. You can do that too, right? So if I go back to my Object Explorer, or sorry, if I go back to, I didn't mean to do that, my toolbox, that's what I meant. And if I drag and drop a label, let's drag and drop a big label in here. And we'll make this label huge, right? So here's my label. Let's make it 30 or 36. There we go, 36. Yay, it's massive, right? And we'll move it into the middle somewhere, right? And we'll make this label called the, you know, we'll say the welcome label. We'll call this the welcome label. Welcome label. And we'll say, we'll call this, we'll kind of put the welcome label that says, welcome to my program, right? Welcome to my code. How about welcome to my code? There we go. Welcome to my code. That's the whole, almost the whole entire splash screen, right? There we go. Welcome to my code. So this welcome to my code splash screen, I want it to start first, and I want it to have 3 seconds. Yes? Form? Sure you can. Yes, you can. And the way it works is this, right? You're going to, when this welcome to my code thing pops up, the behavior that I want is I want to wait 3 seconds and then open up my new form. In order for me to do that, I need a timer, and there's a timer control on the left, right? So I notice that there's a bunch of other controls, but there's other controls down here, and there's other the components. There's 2 ways to get to it. I can kind of go to components as an example, and I want to look at timer, or you can also type the component that you can't find up here in the search toolbox. So I want to drag my timer onto my splash screen like this. Okay, it actually appears in the gutter, right? So this is something new that you've never seen before. Here's my timer control. And I want to call this splash screen timer, splash form timer. There we go, splash form timer. Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to enable the timer, right, to true. And my interval is in milliseconds. That's 100 milliseconds. I want to change this to 3,000, right, because 3,000 milliseconds is equal to 3 seconds. Okay, okay, cool. So far, so good. I got a splash form. I've got a timer that I've dragged and dropped onto the form in the gutter. That's a timer control. And now I need an event. It's going to be the tick event. And the way to know that is if I click on the I'm clicked on the timer itself, and I want to click the lightning bolt. You can see that the only event I have is a tick event, right? So I'm going to click on the tick event, or double click. And then you have, when the timer goes to 3,000 milliseconds, here's what I want to do. I want to disable the timer. Okay, that's the first thing I want to do. Disable itself, right? So I want to say, you know, the splash form timer, right? Splash form timer, right? Dot enabled is equal to true, to false. So disable the timer. That's the first thing, right? Why? Because if you don't disable the timer, it's going to keep triggering a new form every 3 seconds. It's going to make a new one, and it's going to keep doing that forever, right? That's bad. We don't want that kind of timer to happen, right? And then we want to create that new form, which is the start form. And I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did earlier with my next form, or my start form. Remember my start form? I did this piece, next form, next form, new, next form, this. I got to do all that stuff again, but here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say instantiate the new form. So I'm going to call it start form, which is my start form, is it equal to a new start form. Oops, there we go. And what I want to do is two things. I want to show the new form. So start form, oops, lowercase, start form dot show. Okay, now there's a problem with this. There's a problem. I want you to see what the problem would be. And this dot hide, right? If we do it this way, this is how I want it to work, but that means that when I click on the X of the start form now, it's not going to close the application. This thing has to close, or I have to put an exit button or something else for the entire application to close, right? Because this is going to be the originating form, my splash form, not my start form anymore, okay? And I also have to change in my program.cs, this one, which is my my driver program. I can't do new start form. I got to do new splash form, right? Because that's the one that's going to start off, not my start form. Make sense? Because originally it was start form. That's the one that first started. But now I got to make my splash form start off. Okay, why am I doing all this? Why am I starting off different forms and going from one from there? Guys, if we only have one single form in our application, there's no application. All right? We need to move from one form to the other. And I'm showing you the splash form because it's just another form. You can make any kind of form you want. Right now, I'm showing you the show method. There's also something called the show dialog method. And if I make a show dialog method, I can create my own quote-unquote message box that will stop everything until I click OK, or until I hide that form. OK, we're going to get back to that. Let's try and run this thing. All right, so now we should have this. Welcome to my code. After 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and then boom, this form comes up. OK, but now this is the problem. If I click this, still running, right? Still running. So now what I want is when I click the X, I want application to exit, right? That's what I want. So I need another event on my start form. My start form, this event, when I click the X, I want the form closing event. And again, I'm going to go to my properties, and I'm going to go to my form closing event. Here's my form closing, right? So form closing, I want it to exit now. You can also do the form closed, either one. When the form is closed, I want the application to exit, right? I like it more on the form closing event because I have more control. So on my form closing event of my start form, I want to application exit. So it looks the same. It's not really the same, actually. And I did it again. Whew. Something that looks easy, not easy. Remember I talked about scaling, how it's going to ramp, how we're going to continue to add more stuff and add more stuff. And I asked you to do this stuff on the exam, and if you don't know how to do it because you haven't practiced, you don't know what to do, here's an example. So for lab 1, I want you to take the stuff I just showed you how to do and make your own splash form, right? Make it nice, add an image, do something with it that makes it look better than welcome, right? And if you want, for bonus marks, you can add it into your assignment number 1, okay? You don't need it. I didn't ask for assignment number 1, but if you add it in, I'll give you bonus marks. I'll give you 4 bonus marks if you add it into your assignment number 1, okay? That means you're getting paid twice. 2% for the form, because it's due. This thing is due tomorrow night at midnight to do it, to work with it and try and make it work. And you can follow my methods. Look at I'm going to put this stuff on GitHub so you can see my code, right? That's number 1. And you're going to get paid again in your assignment number 1 when you do it as a bonus. And I hope everyone will do it as a bonus, please. That'll be a good thing. So everyone gets a bonus, and if you mess something up, it'll be extra. I love bonus marks because there's always chances that you're not going to do so well on an exam or on a little test, and the bonus marks make that up so you can get near 100%. Okay, how does this work now? One last time, right? So here's my welcome. 1, 2, 3 seconds. Opens up my next one, right? And then you can see the diagnostic session, how long it lasts for 3 seconds, right? If I click next, I go to my next. If I click this, I go back. If I click next, I go to the next one. If I click this, I go back. If I click, I can toggle hello, goodbye. This is all good. And if I click this one, the application stops. Sure. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next one goes back to this one. That's what I want it to do, right? But if I want to close it, I can close it, right? And the next, back, click, 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 click. Here's something. Here's how, you see how it says goodbye? If I click next and go back, it still says goodbye, right? Because I'm just hiding it and I'm showing it again, okay? But what if, I'm putting this out to you, I want you to answer the question. The class is over, but I want you to answer. What if I put something in here, right? If I go next, will it appear the same way it was before? No, because I'm destroyed that form. That form, I've killed it. I've taken machine guns and I've put it full of holes. It's gone. It's destroyed. It's over. I have to do it again. So how do I carry data? And this is the question I want to leave you guys with before next class. How do I carry data from one form to the other so it remembers? I don't is the answer. What I do is I create a class, separate class, has nothing to do with the forms, like the character class. And if I want to carry character values from one form to the other, I hold them in the character container class so it has nothing to do with my forms. And then I can just read that class when I go to one form to the other. I just keep reading that class. Here it is. I updated the class. Okay, let's read it again. And it'll always keep track of where I'm at, right? That's the way to do it, all right? Correct. However, if you do it the other way, if you pass the baton, you could do that too. If I want to pass the baton. What does pass the baton mean? It means that I can create some properties in my next form, and every time I go to the next form, I push stuff into the properties. That's bad, right? Because I'm going to keep pushing stuff into the form. I have extra properties in the form, and it's really ugly. That means the forms have all the logic, and I don't want to have the logic in the forms. It's just presentation. I want to have it in a controller class, some kind of model that I have on the other side. So I'll leave you with that. Let's upload this to GitHub just to finish off, and then you should have everything you need for your lab. And then I'll answer questions after class if you want to stick around. So Team Explorer, I'm going to go to sync, right? Actually, I'm going to go to changes first. Before I go to sync, changes, I'm going to add everything in here. I'm going to say initial commit or set a project completed. I really didn't use GitHub for anything but backup today, right? Here's project completed. And I'm going to go to home, and I'm going to sync, and I'm going to go get started, and I'm going to create a new project on GitHub inside the Georgian College area here that we're going to call COMP1004 Fall 2016 Lesson 3. And how easy it is just by clicking Publish, away we go. And you should have everything up on GitHub now. Thanks, guys, and see you next week. If you want to stick around for questions, I'll be around to answer your questions.